So peeps, Sora here, and today I'm doing a special video to celebrate the 63rd anniversary, or 62nd anniversary, of one of my favourite TV shows, one of my little passions and loves, outside of gaming and professional wrestling, is the show Doctor Who. Now, a little bit of backstory of the show. I was born at a time period when the show was not airing. So, I didn't grow up with the original show as it was airing, and I didn't grow up with the New Who when that first started. I was watching Doctor Who back when it was in the wilderness years, and BBC Two used to have episodes of Doctor Who on after The Simpsons when I was little, so I have memories of watching stuff like Trial of a Time Lord, Members of the Daleks, Genesis of the Daleks, Terror of the Autons, Caves of Zani, which is one of my favourite stories. Remember Stars, my favourite story ever. So I have, and Trial of the Time Lord, of course. I have memories of watching those. Now, I have seen every single story of Doctor Who that exists still, from William Hartnell's era all the way up to the final episode with Ncuti Gatwa. So I have a good basis of the show. Now this list is going to be a little controversial because there's going to be some placements on the list that some people are going to think are too low. There's going to be some placements on this list that some people think are going to be too high. I also have down here some of the sonic screwdrivers of some doctors, which I will use as I'm talking about those particular doctors. Now, I just want to preface a few things. This is my own personal ranking. I know that most people are definitely going to disagree with this list because there are some very controversial placements. Second of all, but it's my personal list, so yes, my preferences. Second of all, I'm basing this off of what exists on screen portrayals. So anything that's the Big Finish audios, novels or comic books or video games or anything like that are not going to be taken into account. But if they were, doctors like the 8th would be, doctors like the 8th and the 6th would be significant, and the 5th would be significantly higher than they are. Thirdly, I'm not basing this off of the quality of the stories that each doctor was in, because if that was the case, the 4th and the 10th and the 11th would dominate the list pretty highly, even though a couple of those are pretty high. Thirdly, and another caveat to that is, I'm basing this solely on my thoughts on the actor's portrayal of that doctor. So I'm not going to take into account the stories they were in. I may mention things from stories that they were in, but I will not be taking into account any of the stories that were in. Meaning, if an era is bad, for example, the 6th or 13th, it's not going to have any bearing on the Doctor themselves, because I'm talking about how they portray the Doctor. And in my opinion, 6 and 13 do the best of what they had. So with that out of the way, let's start with my least favourite. Also, I want to preface before I start. I don't hate any of these doctors. Okay? I don't hate any of these doctors. I have issues with one, which I'll get to when I start the list. But I don't hate any of these doctors. I don't hate any of these actors. I think they're all fine actors, and in one case, actress. But I just have, this is my personal ranking. Without further ado, let's start. First up is at 15th place, I have the 15th Doctor. Now, or as I refer to him on the channel, the Disney Doctor. Now, anybody that watches my videos that have me talking about Doctor Who in them sometimes will know I do not like the 15th Doctor. He is the only Doctor out of all of them, sorry about the lining again, that I do not have any connection with. I've watched his episodes as they went out. I do not have any connection to this Doctor whatsoever. Nothing about his mannerisms, nothing about his personality, nothing about the way he looks speaks Doctor to me. I did once describe him as this, and I don't want to sound offensive or rude to Ncuti Gatwa, because I think Ncuti Gatwa was a fine actor when he's in stuff like Sex Education and stuff, and on some of his stage productions. He doesn't feel like the Doctor. He feels like a theatre student cosplaying as a Doctor. I don't like that he runs away from everything. I don't like that he's always singing. I don't like the repeated crying. It's just everything. This Doctor, I call this Doctor the Disney Doctor because it feels like he is a Disney character in the Doctor Who show, and I just don't like it. I can't think of any standout stories for him other than The Devil's Court and Lux, which ironically The Devil's Court has singing in it, but I give that one a pass because of the Maestro, which I think is the best villain this era came up with. But I just think there's too much singing in this era, there's too much crying, he doesn't have a consistent outfit, he had a different companion in both of his seasons, and even then when he had his second companion, Ruby kept coming back, and it just... They brought in a lot of old characters, like they brought in Mel, they brought in Susan even, and it just... It feels, and this is going to be a complaint that I have about another Doctor that's low down on this list. It feels like nostalgia bait to bring back audiences that have moved on. In 14th place, we have the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann. Let me just... Oh, the batteries need changing. The 8th Doctor, played by Paul McGann. Now, I love Paul's portrayal of the Doctor. I do. However, because I'm basing this off of what's on screen and his portrayal on screen, I only have the movie from 1996 and the mini episode The Night of the Doctor to go by. Paul is fantastic in both of these, but I don't feel like he's been, and this is a complaint that I have with two other Doctors coming up on the list. I don't think we saw enough of him during his run, during this, for me to say he could be one of the best. Now, I'm aware that if I take into account the comic books, and I take into account novelizations, and I take into account the audios, the Big Finish audios, he's one of the best. If I take those into account, he's one of the best. But because this is purely about the TV show, the BBC TV show, I can't put him any higher on the list. I apologise to any 8 fans, but I just can't. At 13th, we have the 14th Doctor, played by the incredible David Tennant. Now, the reason why the 14th Doctor is so low is because we have 3 episodes with him. But that's not the only reason he's so low. It feels like the same thing I said with the 15th. It feels like a nostalgia act. You bring back David Tennant and Catherine Tate because the show's ratings were declining. Even though personally I like the Doctor Who. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But it feels like it's just 10 2.0. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the 10th Doctor, as you'll see later on. But I don't want to see the same thing again. I like every Doctor to have a different feel and a different vibe to each other. That's what keeps the show fresh. My issue with the 14th is it's just David Tennant playing the 10th Doctor again, but carrying all of the mental and emotional trauma from what happened to the 13th Doctor with the timeless child nonsense and stuff. So it just feels like a more mentally and emotionally scarred 10th Doctor. So there's not really anything to latch onto that's new. His costume is awesome, though. I will admit, his costume is probably one of my favourite Doctor costumes. And the TARDIS interior is really cool, where it's like the classic look with the rondels. That's what they're called, the circle things. And the light of different colours. I love that. And that carried over to Shooty, which I love. Which is the only thing I love about Shooty Zero. But yeah, it's not anything there to work with. At 12, and this, I should really cross these off as I go, so that we know. Next, at 12, we have the original, the genuine article, you may say, the first Doctor, played by the late, great, much loved, much missed William Hartnell. Now, I feel bad putting the original, the OG, this low down on the list. But I feel like even though he's the first, he didn't really lay the blueprint that the other Doctors have followed. That was his successor, which I'll get to much later on. Another problem with William Hartnell's Doctor is he's very spiky and rude and mean. I mean, in the very first story that he's in, he picks up a giant stone, a giant rock, and tries to bash a caveman's head in. The original Doctor chose violence. Now, obviously, he has some badass moments. Like, one of my favourite moments of his, in terms of, like, badassness, is the moment in the War Machines when the robots are approaching him. He just steps in front of everybody and just stands like that, holding his little powers like, you're going to have to get through me. Do you know who you're messing with? You know, like that. And, of course, he has that iconic, legendary speech that he gives to Susan in The Dark Invasion of Earth, which is one of my favourite stories, where he says, one day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. Or something along those lines. He has some great speeches. He has some very good moments. However, the unfortunate thing is, a lot of his era is very slow paced compared to the modern show. Now, there are some great stories like The Dark Invasion of Earth, The Time Meddler is another good one. The War Machines is a good one. There are some really good stories during his era, but unfortunately, William Hartnell's ill health means that, and the way that television was filmed and shot in the 1960s, means there's a lot of moments where you have where William Hartnell will say things that he's not meant to say. He'll completely say them wrong. That's no fault of his, and I'm not like attributing that to anything other than his ill health. But I just feel like, yes, he's iconic, and yes, he's the original, but I just can't put him higher than some of the Doctors that came after, because I just feel like they did more. But he is still, I still respect him, I still love him, I still think that he is the GOAT when it comes to the show, because he is the RDJ. He is what RDJ is to the Marvel MCU. He is to Doctor Who what Robert Downey Jr. is to the MCU, is what I was trying to say. But yeah, I still love him. I still think he's great. He's in some of my favourite stories. It's just what came after was better. Now, this is where the controversy comes in. These next two placements will be controversial. At 11th, I have the 9th Doctor. Now, before you start raging or like having a fit in the comments over this, I want you to put this into perspective. I was already a fan of the show from the reruns when the show was brought back with Christopher Eccleston. So I had a good basis and a good grasp of what the show was all about and who the Doctor was. I remember watching Rose as it first aired. I can't remember how old I was, but I was still young. I remember watching it as it aired, and I remember loving it, but I remember thinking that the Doctor's portrayal was kind of off to me. I mean, obviously he got better and was explained with like the Time War and stuff, and I do think that Christopher Eccleston is to modern Doctor Who what William Hartnell is to the original Doctor Who. I just feel like he had one series, and when the second episode of his series aired, he'd already announced that he was leaving the show. So it felt difficult to connect with him, knowing that he was leaving soon anyway. So that was my issue. His era is great though. He has some great stories. It's just I found it difficult to make a connection with him properly because of the whole he left after one series thing. But yeah, he's still fantastic as the Doctor. I still think he's brilliant. I still love his outfit and his look and like the portrayal he has, where he's like the battle torn hero and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, we didn't have him long enough for me to make a massive connection with him. Is the problem. Now another controversial one. We're now into the top 10. And we're kicking off with another one that I think is going to be a controversial placement. But once I explain to you the reason why this Doctor is this low on the list, hopefully you'll understand. At 10th, I have the 12th Doctor, played by Peter Capaldi, or Capaldi. Capaldi or Capaldi, however you want to say it. Now, you have to understand something, and this will become apparent later on when you realise who, like, my top ones are. Matt Smith, I loved Matt Smith as Doctor. I will get to that when I get to that. But then we went to Peter Capaldi. It felt like, and keep in mind, I'd seen Old Doctor at this point, it felt like they were trying the same thing they did with the 6th Doctor again. Only this time it got to see itself fall to fruition. Now, the issue that I have with the 12th Doctor is, the biggest issue that I have, and this is kind of the only issue that I have really with this Doctor, the inconsistent characterization. What do I mean by inconsistent characterization? Peter Capaldi basically plays a different version of the Doctor in each of his 3 series. In series 8, he's a grumpy, miserable, spiky, crotchety old man with a rude attitude. In his second series, in series 9, he's having a midlife crisis, flipping playing the guitar on the tank, so I love that moment and stuff. But yeah, he's like having a midlife crisis. And then in series 10, he's playing a mellowed out, kind, calm, respectful to everybody, understanding of different cultures and beliefs and stuff like that. Woke would be what some people would say, but that's not what I'm referring to it as. But to me, he just it's this. I know it's a character arc. I understand it is a character arc. I'm not faulting that. I understand it's a character arc. I just feel like because of the inconsistency with his Doctor throughout, I can warm to him. I warmed to him in his final series. But his era, his portrayal, I know a lot of people love that he had a consistent character arc. But to me, it's that consistent character arc which works against him because he changes so drastically each of his series. It's not like with the 7th Doctor where he starts out bumbling and jokey and then becomes a mastermind, but I'll get to him when I get to him. It's more, he has 3 different personality traits on display throughout 3 different series, and it feels disjointed and weird. And what doesn't help is a lot of his episodes I just find boring. Like, I do. Like, don't get me wrong, Peter Capaldi is brilliant, and nobody can do a speech like that, man. He does a speech better than anybody. It's just the inconsistencies with his era that are a problem for me. So that's why he's at the position he's at. Next, at 9th, we have the 5th Doctor, played by Peter Davison, the father-in-law of the 10th Doctor. Now, I want to go into like the reasonings for this. Peter Davison's Doctor, to me, is the most human feeling of the Doctors. He doesn't really have apart from the celery on the lapel, he doesn't really have much alien attributes. He is kind to a lot of people, but he's quick to anger and short-tempered with his companions. More so Tegan, but then it's Tegan. She tested his patience anyway. And he couldn't get freaking rid of her. He tried getting rid of her twice, she came back. But yeah, the Fifth Doctor to me is the kind-hearted Doctor. He's more of the human Doctor. He's like the chummy Doctor. He has a quintessentially British outfit too, so there's that. He also has this is the era where it suffered from a problem that's called too many people in the TARDIS. He constantly had multiple companions. He never had a single companion on their own with him for his entire run. He had Nyssa, Tegan, and Adric. Then he had, when Adric died, he had Nyssa, Tegan, and Turlo. Then when Nyssa left to help people with the research and stuff, he had Turlo and Tegan. And then when Tegan left, he then had Turlo and Perry. And then Turlo left, and he only had one companion with him for his final story, The Caves of Androzani, which is one of the best stories of Doctor Who ever. But we're not talking about stories, that's going to be a separate video. But for me, I love his portrayal because he did have tendencies to be short-tempered and spiky and like rude, but he was never like cruel with it. He was the most human of the Doctors. You wouldn't think that this was a man who was thousands of years old who could change his form and regenerate into a different body, an alien with two hearts. You wouldn't think that. It was never accentuated. Also, this was the Doctor who lost his sonic screwdriver very early on in the Visitation. I think it was the Visitation. It was one of his earliest stories. It got destroyed by a laser shot in a story set about the Great Fire of London. I know a lot about this era because this is one of the eras that I saw most as a kid because it was repeated mostly on television. This is how I know this stuff. But yeah, he was a Doctor who used any means he could, thought-wise, to solve a problem. Like using a cricket ball to set himself back into a ship when he got floated out of space, or instances of where the TARDIS wouldn't cooperate, so he just goes bang like that on it, you know, which I made a joke in my Edge of Reality video about wanting to do. But yeah, I like the Fifth Doctor. I just think his era again has inconsistencies, and some stories are way better than others. But yeah, and also he has the too many companions thing. But maybe I have a soft spot for him because Peter Davison's one of my favorite actors, so maybe that's the reason. Okay. At 8th, we have the Cosmic Hobo, the second Doctor, played by the late, great, legendary, much missed Patrick Troughton. Now, the problem with the second Doctor is a lot of his era is missing. But what we do have is brilliant stuff. I love this man's portrayal of the Doctor, and also once you see later on the list who's at the top, you'll understand why I have a soft spot for this one because of reasons that people understand. He is basically the bumbling uncle. He is bumbling, he's comedic, he's kind-hearted. He is kind, he has a temper on him, he can be kind of spiky sometimes, but he's very comedic and bumbling. There's a scene in The Invasion where Cyberman is shooting at them. He holds onto his backside and starts running around. It's just, he's a comedic Doctor, but he's also serious. And I love his saying, "Oh my giddy aunt," like he just, and the recorder and everything, he's so good. And this is the man that followed on from William Hartnell. So this was the first actor to take on the role after William Hartnell. This is the man that laid the blueprint for what the other actors would do with the Doctor. He laid the blueprint for the Doctor as a character. Tomb of the Cybermen is a fantastic story. A lot of his best stories involve the Cybermen. He's also got some of the best speeches in the show, in my opinion, and his era may not all exist anymore, but what is there is really good. There's horror elements in his era. His portrayal is so good that I can't help but love him. Now, these next two are going to be incredibly controversial placements. Don't say I didn't warn you. When I said there was going to be really controversial placements, these next two are the two that I mean. In 7th, I'm nervous about this because I know this one and the next one people are going to rake me over the coals for, but like I said, this is my opinion. In 7th place, I have the 6th Doctor, played by Colin Baker. Now, I know a lot of people right now like, why is the 6th Doctor so high? I want to take you back to when I was really little and I was watching the reruns of Doctor Who. One of the memories that always stuck out to me was the moment in Trial of the Time Lord when the 6th Doctor's on trial and he makes that speech about Daleks, Sontarans and Cybermen are in the nursery compared to us. I should have stayed here. We're the ones that are truly corrupt about the Time Lords. That speech always stuck with me. His reaction to when he thought Perry got killed stuck with me. His moment in Vengeful Varos, which is one of my favourite stories, when he sees the guy in the acid bath, grabs his jacket and says, "You'll forgive me if I don't join you," that's always stuck with me. His personality has always stuck with me. And I know a lot of people dislike his attitude and his humour, but if I was to compare my humour to that of any of the Doctors, it would be the 6th, because we both have that dry, sarcastic humour. I think, and also, this is probably a spoiler alert for when I do the seasons ranking video, I think, apart from Time Lash, his debut season is flawless. Apart from Time Lash, his debut season is flawless. He gets off to a really rough start by strangling his companion, but that's because he's that confused. But I love that his portrayal of Doctor is drastically different to any other Doctor that we have seen before or since. He is dark. He's callous. He's arrogant. He's violent, even. Like that. The violence in the 6th Doctor's era is the reason why the show on hiatus. But I love the 6th Doctor because he is so drastically different to any other Doctor that's been since or before him. The outfit choice is absolutely horrific, though. Yeah, that jacket is absolutely horrific. I'm sorry. Now, another controversial one. At 6th, I have... brace yourselves. This is going to be the one that annoys a lot of people. The 13th Doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker. Oh, the batteries are dead. Now, I know a lot of people hate the 13th Doctor. I know a lot of people take issue with her era and say it was when the show started to decline and when, like, all this and that. But I have to say this. If you ignore the very, very bad writing, if you ignore the very clumsy attempts at sending a political or environmental or social message, if you just take it at the value of Jodie herself and the way that she portrays the Doctor, I don't know how you can say she's terrible. She is like the best friend Doctor. She's like the best friend Doctor. She's the one. She calls her companions her fam, for goodness sake. She's happy, she's optimistic, she's always inquisitive and curious about everything. It's only brought up that she's a woman once, and it's a throwaway line that's actually really funny. When Yaz keeps calling Madam, she says, "You keep calling me Madam, why is that?" She says, "Because you're a woman." And she goes, "Am I? Does it suit me?" Like, I love that, it's funny. But, yeah, her era, the stories in her era are absolutely terrible. Like, I don't think any of her 3 seasons are great at all, by any stretch. But she has a similar thing to the 6th, where I love her portrayal despite the terrible. Also, I love her sonic screwdriver design. It's probably my favorite design. Her portrayal outlasts and is better than her stories. Also, she has probably one of the best send-offs and regeneration stories in the show's history, in my opinion. The Power of the Doctor is a great story, in my opinion. Now, obviously, yes, she's in some terrible stories, and there's an unnecessary political message behind some of them. But her portrayal of Doctor itself is fantastic. Also, as you'll see later with who's coming up later, I love the little references that she has to the 10th and the 3rd. I love those little references. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, you've just lost all credibility by having the 13th so high. I said it's my opinion and it's my list. If you don't like it, that's your choice. But I'm not going to sit here and lie and put Doctors that I love low on the list just to please the majority of the fan base. Well, that's lit up. Also, I will say this. I am tired of people saying that Jodie is the woke Doctor, the terrible Doctor. Newsflash, the show's always been woke. The show has always been woke. One of the show's first showrunner was a woman in the 60s. There was a black pilot in a second Doctor story. There was a woman who was a president of a planet in a third Doctor story. They were talking about having a woman take over from Tom Baker in the 80s. There's environmental messages sprinkled throughout the 3rd and 5th Doctor's eras. There's even a political, protest story in the 4th Doctor's era. The show has always been woke. It's just people decided, oh, woman Doctor bad. Also, no, woman Doctor not bad. Woman Doctor misjudged. And I know I've probably made a lot of people angry with what I just said, but you have to hear it. It's true. I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, no. Just accept that the show has always been this way. Okay, that's wrapped over. Now, from here on out, top 5. Now, this never placement is going to be controversial because of one of the classic Doctors above them. In 5th place, I have the 4th Doctor, played by the incredible and iconic Tom Baker. Now, these top 5 to me are interchangeable. You ask me any day of the week about these top 5, I will probably give you a different answer for any of these 5 being my favourite. Now, with Tom Baker, everything about this Doctor just works. He has a brilliant look. He has a great personality. He's hilarious. He can go from being comedic to serious to angry on a dime like that. His explanation of how the dimensions of the TARDIS work, when he's explaining it to Sarah Jane and when he's explaining it to Leela, they're brilliant. He has some of the best loved companions of the show during his run. Sarah Jane specifically, even though she was introduced with the 3rd Doctor. He has some of the best stories, like Genesis the Daleks, City of Death. Just everything. Also, his first series, Season 12, is TV perfection. Spoiler alert for an upcoming video. Everything about his first season, and pretty much all of his seasons, apart from I think one of them, are perfect. The only season I think of his that kind of falls apart is the Key to Time season, but we'll talk about it when we get to the seasons video. But yeah, everything about his era is flawless, apart from like one or two hiccups here. His outfit is great. Everything is like the tone where it's like horror themed and then lightheartedness and stuff. Like his era is iconic. He's iconic, and just yeah, I just love everything about his era. In fourth place, we have the Bondian Doctor, the third Doctor, played by the late, great, uncomparable, much missed Jon Pertwee. Now, the reason why I'm ranking the third Doctor so high is because I recently rewatched his run. I've recently rewatched his seasons, and I can honestly say he is the only Doctor who does not have a single bad series or season. His run, he has a couple of bad stories here and there. Don't get me wrong, he does have some clunker stories. Don't get me wrong. But what we have of his, like his era, is so good. Also, a little backstory for those of you who are unfamiliar with his era. At the end of the second Doctor's final story, the War Games, not WB War Games, the War Games, the Doctor is exiled to Earth for meddling in Earth affairs too often. He is exiled to Earth and forced to regenerate. He regenerates in Jon Pertwee. So pretty much the first 3 seasons, there are set on Earth. Season 7, 8, and 9, the first 3 Jon Pertwee seasons, are primarily set on Earth. Now, there are some stories when the Doctor travels to space during that run, but it's usually because the Time Lords are summoning him to a planet or whatever. It's not until his penultimate season, season 10, where he is free to travel the galaxy again whenever he chooses. I feel like the earthbound nature of a lot of his run makes it... I can't imagine how it was back watching it in the 70s when these stories aired. But when you take into consideration that a lot of the stuff that was monsters during his run, during the Earthbound stories, are things in everyday life, like the Autons was like living plastic. Like just maggots and houseflies and like just stone gargoyles, even like just things that exist in everyday life, like that we have in everyday life, could be a monster. Just there's all that. Plus, he is an action Doctor. He knows Aikido and karate and uses it a lot. There's a favourite scene of mine in Day of the Daleks when he karate chops a guy. He karate chops a guy and then just walks away sipping his drink. Sipping his tea. It's like just so third Doctor coded. And yeah, he knows fencing, and also his era was the introduction of the Master. And it was the first era in colour. So, yeah, I love the third Doctor. I just think he is so good. Also, his look is so debonair and sophisticated. I love it. Also, that cape. That cape with the purple lining is just perfection. In third place, we have the 7th Doctor, played by Sylvester McCoy. Now, the 7th Doctor is my favourite of the classic Doctors. And it's because, to me, he has a similar situation to when the 4th Doctor was paired with Sarah Jane, or the 3rd Doctor was paired with Jo. Or even with later Doctors, like the 11th with Amy. It is a perfect Doctor. Him and Ace have a perfect Doctor companion dynamic. Now, his first season, season 24, is honestly one of the worst seasons of the show. It's like terrible. But his final 2 seasons, 25 and 26, which also were the final 2 seasons of the classic show, I love. His era, to me, if you ignore, obviously, if you start his era from Dragonfire, which is the final story of season 24, and then you just watch everything after that, it's fantastic. It's flawless. With maybe the Silver Nemesis being the outlier of the bunch. But his portrayal is so good. He can be goofball, comedic, and bumbling, but then he can be cunning and manipulative. He is the only Doctor that I know. He is, well, not the only Doctor that I know, but obviously. He is cunning and manipulative and cold and calculating. He has even, on instances, used and emotionally manipulated Ace to achieve his goals of beating his foes. There's a good moment, example of this, in The Curse of Fenric, when he's playing literal chess, and he calls Ace an emotional cripple, and all these things, and he doesn't really mean it, because he loves Ace. It's like a father-daughter dynamic with those two. But the way that he says it, you sound convinced. In fact, Ace is even convinced for a little bit that he means it. But, yeah, it's just, he's so cold and calculating, and I love, like I said, I love portrayals of the Doctor that extenuate elements that are on the darker side. That's why I have a soft spot for the Sixth, because I love Doctors that accentuate a darker side of Doctor, where it's like, yeah, this heroic alien being may not actually be as heroic as we thought, you know. But yeah, it's just, also, I love that umbrella. I know a lot of people hate that question mark umbrella. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, I love his era. I love how he accentuates his R's, especially in the Great Show in the Galaxy, the gods of Ragnarok. Just like the way that he talks and rolls his R's and accentuates certain words is so good. The spoons playing thing is funny. I love that. And the moments where it's like he's doing circus acts, like with like the thing where he's this with the gods of Ragnarok and stuff with his hat. So it's like, it's so good. But he's also a Doctor like the Third, who's not afraid to get in on the action, like in Remembrance of the Daleks, where he has the zip line down the school playground. Like, just, he was willing to get into these situations. Also, he's a mastermind at outwitting his foes, particularly with the Davros speech, when he, for no reason whatsoever, just says about unlimited rice pudding, and Davros is like, he's like, just, he's so, like, he's a Doctor of two completely different sides, and it's like two different extremes. And also it helps that seasons 25 and 26 are quintessential Doctor in my opinion, so yeah. In second place, now, I want to talk briefly about this, because when I went to make this list, I was certain that this next Doctor that's at number 2 would be my number 1, because I've always loved this Doctor. I've always had a soft spot for this Doctor. But over the years, he has dropped to second place because of, well, reasons I'll get into. In second place, I have the 10th Doctor, played by David Tennant. Now, I can make it bigger. Now, the issue that I have with this, now, the reason why the 10th used to be my favourite, but is no longer my favourite. In fact, you probably guess who my favourite is just by the list. 10 and the next, like, my favourite, used to go back and forth before, like, with who my favourite was. But over the past few years, he is solidly now my second favourite, because of one factor. The dude keeps coming back. Now, normally that wouldn't be a bad thing, but the guy has come back and played 2 completely different portrayals of the same exact two completely different incarnations of the same exact Doctor. The magic of the 10th is gone. The magic of his Doctor is completely diminished. To the point, I don't want him to come back again. If he comes back, I want it to be as a Doctor in a multi-Doctor story. The only problem is, if he comes back in a multi-Doctor story, who's he going to come back as, 10 or 14? And the 14th Doctor is still around. So it makes everything that happened with the 10th Doctor completely pointless, in my opinion, now. But he's still my second favourite, because this was the Doctor that really solidified my love of the show. I still think his era has some of the best writing the show has ever seen. And he is honestly up there with Tom Baker in iconic portrayals. The problem is, like I said, he's come back too much, played two completely different incarnations of the same exact Doctor. I just can't rank him at number 1 anymore because of that. And at number 1, you probably already guessed this. At number 1, we have the 11th Doctor, played by Matt Smith. Doesn't work anymore. The 11th Doctor, played by Matt Smith. The 11th Doctor encapsulates everything I love about the show. He has the best, to me, Matt Smith has the best elements of every Doctor. He has the childlike nature of the 2nd and the 4th. He has the quick anger of the 10th and the 6th and the 7th. He has the cunning of the 7th. He has the willingness to get involved in the action of the 3rd. He has the prickliness of the 1st. He has the kindness and humanity of the 5th. But he also had the tortured, self war within himself that the 9th has. He has elements of every other Doctor, and I love him for that. Matt Smith's Doctor is basically a child trapped in a man's body. He is, to me, the quintessential Doctor. When I think of my favorite elements of the Doctor, if you would take all my favorite elements of the Doctor, put them all together in a pot and stir it and make a soup, a Doctor soup, I guess, the result would be the 11th Doctor. He gets off to a fantastic start with the 11th Hour, still to be, in my opinion, the best introductory story a Doctor has ever had. His first season is phenomenal, Series 5 is phenomenal, Series 6 is less so, and 7 is like a tale of two halves. He's in my favourite multi-Doctor story, The Dead Doctor, and I love his companions. I love Amy, I love Rory, I love River. River Song is top tier great, in my opinion. I don't like Clara that much, but that's neither here nor there, I won't get into that. But yeah, I just love the 11th Doctor. The only thing, I love his outfit, I love his TARDIS interior and everything. The only thing I freaking hate about the 11th Doctor is opening titles. I don't like his original opening titles for seasons 5 and 6. I absolutely despise his opening titles for Series 7. I don't like his opening titles. That's the only thing that I do not like. Everything else I love. Absolutely adore his Doctor. I honestly, when I look back on it, I love everything about his Doctor except for the opening credits. But that's neither here nor there. That's not an important factor. But yeah, and if also his love for odd things like fish fingers and custard, and also the fact that he is the Doctor who most fails to pick up on social cues. The fact that I'm autistic, so I struggle sometimes to pick up on social cues myself, makes me feel more of a connection with his Doctor than any other. And that's why the 11th Doctor is my favourite Doctor. Okay, that was my list of Doctors. I understand it's going to be a controversial list, but I don't mind. I don't care. It's going to be controversial. But yeah, that was my list. I will do rankings of the seasons as well, and I might even do the opening titles and like TARDIS interiors and stuff. And I will, because I collect them, do reviews probably at some point of the collection box set to the classic run. Because I have most of them. The only ones I don't have are like obviously the ones that haven't been released yet, and I think like there's a couple of them I don't have. Like I think there's like 2 Tom Baker seasons I don't have because they were limited edition ones and I missed the chance to get them. But yeah, that's yeah. But it's okay. So if you like what you saw, snap that like button, snap the notification button, smash the button. So I'm signing out. Hey guys, peace.